This podcast episode may contain explicit material. Listener-viewer discretion is advised. The intention is not to offend, but to provide information. Proceed only if you are comfortable with potentially sensitive content.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Scenes with Sheriff Jasonard. I'm Jasonard. We started this podcast to educate everyone on the role of the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. We're about serving and protecting our community. On this podcast, we will tackle lots of topics. Hello, everyone. This podcast today is going to be a little bit different. I have my friend Chris Hansen here. He actually came down a while back, and to back up a little bit from there, he reached out to me once he seen the hard work of the men and women in the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. The ICAC Task Force, which is Internet Crimes Against Children. They do such a great job. They've worked really hard to get these predators off the street. Chris has recognized that hard work. I'm so appreciative of him and his partnership to come out here to expose these individuals. So with that, I want to get right down to it. I appreciate his partnership. Y'all stand by as we listen to the podcast with myself and Mr. Chris Hansen.
You may remember a few episodes ago, I actually recorded the podcast from a small laundry room in a home in Livingston Parish, Louisiana. And that's because we were working with the sheriff's office there, Sheriff Jasonard and his team, during a predator investigation in which we caught 11 men in 3 days. Well, it's now early April Fool's, coincidentally. Mm-hmm. And we're back in Livingston Parish. And over the last 3 days, we, along with the team at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, exposed 9 men trying to sexually exploit children. Men who came from as far away as Little Rock, Arkansas. 6-hour drive. We had a registered sex offender, 2 illegal aliens, and a man who arrived on a motorcycle with a loaded gun in his backpack. And so for this episode, I wanted to take a moment and talk to Sheriff Jasonard about these investigations, about his commitment to exposing these men and protecting the children here, and really sending a message worldwide that this behavior will not be tolerated. Sheriff Ard, thanks for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. And especially thank you for partnering up with us to be able to expose these individuals for basically doing what they do. And it's just, can't tell you how much I appreciate that part of it and the hard work of the men and women in my office, because they worked so hard to make these cases work.
Well, we do this around the country.
Yeah.
And I have had the pleasure of working with some really dedicated men and women in law enforcement, Florida, Michigan, Ohio, all around the country, and now here in Louisiana. And Livingston Parish is just outside of Baton Rouge, an hour and change from Louisiana, for folks who don't know it. What made you decide that this was going to be a priority for your sheriff's office?
I met with the Attorney General in Louisiana, Liz Murrill, probably about a year and a half ago, and they introduced me to their ICAC unit. And this unit is basically we had a bunch of tips coming in through Livingston Parish. We were about 300 tips behind. They didn't have an agent that was on board. We signed up. We got on board with this task force, started learning a lot, looking out and seeing what is actually going on. Been here 32 years in law enforcement. You know about these type crimes, but it's just different when you start doing it in the way that we're not going and we're actually not sitting here waiting on victims to come to us.
You're not being reactive, you're being proactive.
We're being proactive, because that's how this task force is set up. So once we got in it with one agent about a year and a half ago, it didn't take us long to figure out we need to go ahead and up our game. So now we have 3 agents that do this full time, and they work so good. And my whole thing, my whole motivation behind this is, number one, I want to educate our community. I want the parents to know that this is real. These predators are everywhere. They're using the internet, chat-based platforms, to seek your children. They're everywhere. Whether it's gaming, any type of social media, they are going after your children. They're out there looking for their prey. And what my hopes is, and it's been proven so far, especially when you come into town, and even when you're not here, is that prey is an undercover officer.
And not a real child.
And not a real child. And I hope that one day, as quick as it'll come, that everybody out there that thinks they're going to prey upon one of these children, and they find out that this kid is from Livingston Parish, they drop the conversation. Whatever we have to do to protect this parish. And I hope that not only starts here, but it goes everywhere across our nation, because I know that's your goal too.
The criticism of my investigations, and by extension your investigations, has been this. You're creating a scenario, and it's not entrapment, and I know that. I've been doing this for 21 years, and you know that because you're a lawman of great experience. But the criticism is you're creating an environment that maybe doesn't exist, that these guys wouldn't do this if you didn't put decoys out there. But we have seen cases time and time again where guys get caught in one of my stings, and then 6 months, 8 months, sometimes 20 years later, they get caught with a real child. One of the cases in the most recent investigation involved a man in his 30s who came here to meet a girl for sex. They talked about it. The chat was very clear. And it turns out that he had actually done 4 years in a local state prison, Hunt Prison, for child pornography and for sexual assault of a child. And here he is. This guy should know, right?
Oh, not only should he know, look, he knew what he was doing and did 4 years, Department of Corrections.
Now, to do 4 years in a Louisiana state prison, to do 4, where presumably he got some sort of a break along the way for good behavior, you must have done something really bad in terms of the conviction versus prison sentence. Am I right?
I think you're 100% right. He did time for something he did involving juveniles, child porn, and here he is doing it again. And look, watching your interview with him, very educated person, especially whenever he basically lays out how he's the victim in this deal.
That's the thing. He says
and he's not the victim.
He was merely reacting to what a teenage girl told him online. And he had to commit several overt acts, right? He had to have the chat.
Yes.
He had to engage. He had to get in the shower. He had to get in his car and drive across town. Almost an hour.
Yeah. Mandeville's over by
New Orleans, basically.
Yes,
right?
above New Orleans. So it's a good 45-minute drive, but it was a little over an hour because he had to stop and get some product, right? Had to give him a couple condoms, which he denied. But, of course, we knew they were there. It was in his pocket. He knew exactly what he was doing. And look, they're seeking those children. They're looking for them on the internet. They're using that tool to find them, to seek them out. They find them and they chat with them. And there's no doubt that this person, this perpetrator that is now in prison, was actually looking for this person, right? There is no doubt in my mind that he's done this since he's been out of prison.
He's a registered
up until
sex
he
offender,
got caught.
Sheriff.
Yeah, he's been doing this. This is not something he all of a sudden that night said, you know what? I think I'm just going to violate a 14 or 15-year-old tonight. That had just come up. He's been doing this, and my hopes is that he has not. But my greater hope is that if he did, and people see him and his name gets out there, that if there is victims, that we will be contacted, or some local authorities, because I just think, and I got this gut feeling is usually right, that this person has done this since he's been out of jail, and he's continued to do this until he got caught, and we caught him.
His mom and dad are apparently lawyers. Mm-hmm. He had the opportunity to get a great education in life. You wonder what makes a person so twisted that they would commit crimes like this?
I don't know. It's just,
presumably,
he comes from
we don't know this, so maybe it's not fair to speculate, but, some of these guys seem to argue that they were victims of inappropriate sexual contact when they were children, and that shaped them in some way. We don't know whether or not that's the case here, but what drives a guy to do this? He comes from a good home, right? Yeah.
And it's just, that's the thing that, and I know you've been doing this longer than I have. It's just, how do you put your thumb on that? What is causing these people to do this? And, but is it a disease? Is it something that's in their brain or whatever? But they're going to do it. I don't think they can stop themselves. I think that there is something, all the cases we worked, it's just like it's there. They're going to continue to do it. And again, it's really scary that this guy who's already been convicted, done time, is out here still continuing to do it.
Now, this man has not gone through the court system yet, and he's entitled to a vigorous defense.
Right.
But we are in a state here in Louisiana where in extreme cases, a judge could impose either surgical or chemical castration.
Right.
And it's happened.
It has.
There's a judge in this community who's done it 2 or 3 times now. Mm-hmm. There are those who feel that's barbaric. How do you feel about it?
I think it needs to be done more often, because these individuals are not going to stop. They're not. There is something wrong with them when a man or a woman, whoever the perpetrator is, seeks the vulnerability of a child. You have something wrong with you. And I don't think they will ever stop. I think it's something that continues with them. And unless they're in prison, locked up for life, where you might have some protection, right? Outside of that, I just think that as long as they're out there, our children, our innocent children, are going to continue to be victims.
There are those who would argue that even if you castrate an offender, they will find a way to violate a child if given the opportunity. Does that negate in any way the need for chemical or surgical castration in extreme cases here?
I think it is a way to try to bring some type of justice to our victims. I think it's needed. I think that the more extreme we get, the better off that we will be.
The death penalty.
The death penalty is, some of these individuals absolutely need a death penalty. I believe in the death penalty because, again, they're more than a nuisance. These are people that are preying upon innocent victims, and we cannot forget that. Innocent victims that really are not in a mature age in their mind to protect themselves. And they take advantage of that. They advantage of that vulnerability, and they go out there and they're going to do all that they can to get their hands on them and to violate them. And so, look, call it what you want, but me, the death penalty would be high up on my chain if I was in that.
And you're not alone, by the way.
Oh,
you
I know
talk
I'm
to your
not.
counterpart in Polk County, Florida, Grady Judd, he'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
That some of these men cannot be rehabilitated.
They cannot be. I just don't think they're not. My experience tells me that these individuals are going to continue to do this every time the opportunity arises. And in today's world, that opportunity exists in your hand 24/7. It's called a cell phone, and it's always on the internet. Everything's there, and it's going to continue. It's never going to stop, and all we can do is fight the battle every day.
This issue a few years ago hit home in this sheriff's office. You had a fellow, Denny Perkins, a longtime sergeant and sheriff's deputy, who was accused of widespread inappropriate sexual behavior, illegal behavior,
Yes.
including some very shocking things he engaged in, masturbating into a cupcake mix. I mean, things you can't even make up.
Yeah, it's just sick. The whole case was just it wasn't. It definitely was eye opening. Yes,
But these cupcakes were served to school kids. I mean,
it's like the whole
defies-
case. Whenever you walk through it, it's and look, that was a very detrimental time, not only to our office but our community. I mean, it was a basically a kick in the gut, if you want to call it that. And then you're going on. Well, how do you not know? I mean, this guy, he lived.
Right, there was a lot of pressure from the community saying, "Hey, wait, this is one of your own. How are we supposed to trust the Livingston
community
Parish Sheriff's Office when you got a guy in Denny Perkins who's doing this
I know.
horrifying kind of thing?"
Mm-hmm. And you try to first off pick your people back up, because we're in law enforcement. We fight these individuals. We put these individuals in jail all the time. How do you not know there's one standing beside you? You don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you're not looking where you should be looking, or you don't know the look.
He's in prison now.
He's in prison now, doing 99 years.
Yeah, 99 years.
Yeah, where he belongs. And, but again, and we hear this all the time, and you hear it all the time. I mean, since you've been here, guys in the school every day. We arrested him. In the school every day with 14-year-old he thought he was hooking up with, and he's in school every day with 14 and 15-year-olds. I mean, you have this throughout the community.
They come from all walks of life.
They do, and you never know. And we've arrested multiple law enforcement officers, firefighters, the medical field, the school system. I mean, they are absolutely everywhere.
How did the Denny Perkins case make you perhaps more laser focused on this sort of an investigation? Did it say to you that if it can happen in our office, we had best really get proactive about this community wide?
Oh yeah, you got to get proactive, and you got to be aware of what's going on. In this case here, one of the things that we are actually doing different now is, the AG's office. We wasn't a part of a task force, so they get a tip or they get a download. In this case, was a download of child porn, and they do an investigation, call us, and we start this investigation and stuff. So it's definitely an eye opener whenever you see these cases unfold, and it's like it's not that it's real because it's real, but it's like it can absolutely be anybody.
Yeah.
Who do you trust today? And then your local sheriff's office, who has this big trust in the community, now it's on the line, right? Because of one individual's.
And you're on the line as sheriff.
Yeah, on the line as the sheriff.
Of this sheriff's
and then was one individual's acts that, everybody's like, well, you should have known, even though you didn't know, you should have known. Well, yeah. I mean, how do you know what you don't know? Again, but anytime you have something like that happens, it's easy for you to kick rocks, get down in the dumps, and start pointing fingers. What you do is you take a step back, you analyze, and you figure out what is the next step. And the next step is we're going to do better. Mm-hmm. We're going to get down to the everything that we do. We're going to go down into the deep roots and find out, what do we need to do to make this better where this doesn't happen again. And of course, not that we could have prevented this incident, right? But you still got to be aware of everything. And then it helped with the partnership with the Attorney General's office to be able to say, how can we make a difference? How can we get more involved in these type of cases? And, and so I don't let things like that get us down. We're going to learn from anything that happens, whether it's a mistake or it's just, bad luck, or it's just, a case that happens. I mean, you gotta look at those type of scenarios. And in this case here, again, going back to the Denny Perkins case, there's a lot of individuals that capitalized on a platform because it was Denny Perkins. And look, I'm not scared to say it. The individual who's now in prison for 99 years was probably one of the best narcotic agents that ever walked the streets of this parish. You know, and I'm not giving him kudos. The facts are the facts.
Right.
Well, when you're that person and you put that many individuals in jail, and then you turn around and do what you're doing, and you get caught, you're going to suffer the consequences.
There's going to be a lot of shade in front.
And the only bad thing about that is everybody that was around you is going to suffer the consequences with you, okay, because you wear the same uniform. And that happens all over our country.
Right.
One bad mistake, we all pay for it, because that's called the brotherhood. Everybody knows that. You know, law enforcement, we're a brotherhood like no other. But there's so many good, but the bad ones usually try to take the good with them. They do. And it's just, but that's what we signed up for. And that's why you don't sit there and you get sad over something like that. You know, you just step back and you just work harder. And that's what we have to do in these type of cases.
Let's talk about some of the cases we saw in this investigation, and folks will see this these episodes on True Blue in the weeks and months to come. But we actually had a guy, and this is a predator investigation first. I mean, we've had a lot of guys drive a long distance, but we had a fellow who came from Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, drove 6 hours to get to the Sting House in Livingston Parish, Louisiana. Shows up at 4:30 in the morning. Now, we've been in the Sting House since 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Now it's 4:30, and he's there.
Over 6 hours. It was just, again, nothing ever surprises me anymore with being here this long. But that is scary that an individual will get in his car and drive 6 hours. Never met this person, right? 16, 14, it don't really matter. It's a juvenile. Knowing it's a juvenile. Stops along the way to get what he needs and knocks on the door and walks in like it's no big deal.
And a mainstream guy, he had been a new car salesman in Little Rock.
Yeah.
He said in the chat and said to me that he was going to drive and see the girl. They talked about sex online, and then turn around and drive back because he had a job interview the next day.
That's scary.
Who does that, Sheriff?
Sick individuals do that, if you ask me. These are the type of people that should not be on our streets. Anybody that has the motivation to drive 6 hours to do that is someone that should not be trusted in the community. Should not be trusted as a citizen, if you ask me. And these are the individuals that we are seeking out to get off our streets.
We had in this latest investigation, as we did in the previous investigation, men show up who were in this country illegally. One fellow was there to see a boy, and he was illegally here from Venezuela. Didn't speak English very well, but he used a translator to make it very clear he wanted to have sex with the boy.
He made it very clear. And again, this person is in our country illegally, shouldn't be here. Thank you for the open borders, right? Because that's probably what helped with this matter. And this person is in our country, not only illegal, but again, seeking out little boys or little girls, either way. And so we can go back to what we were talking about earlier. This person doesn't even deserve a life, if you ask me.
He seemed to indicate that he got into this country because there was an app available for people in Venezuela who felt they were in a prosecution situation or being. He seemed to indicate that he was able to get into this country because he was able to access an app for people in Venezuela who felt persecuted. What does that say to you? This guy's living right here in your parish.
You think you and I can get in Venezuela with an app? They don't let us in their country. But yet he can just come into our country and do this to our children. I mean, it's just, it shouldn't be allowed. But here we are having to deal with him in Livingston, Louisiana, and we shouldn't be dealing with people like this.
And he is under an ICE detainer.
Yes.
At this point.
Yes. And hopefully he'll be on the Trump train back to wherever he came from.
The other case that surfaced in this latest investigation is more intriguing to me because I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I've never seen nothing like this either.
Sheng Shengqi is a Chinese national in this country on a student visa, but has been here for 9 years. 33 years old. And he's, according to his story, at LSU, Louisiana State University, studying opera in this country with a student visa. But you can ask the question, what the heck is somebody doing here for 9 years on a student visa as a Chinese national singing opera? How long does it take to get your graduate degree in opera?
Right. I mean, I can understand. I can understand a doctor, because it takes a little while to get your doctorate or your master's and then your associate's degree or whatever. But opera, I don't know a lot about it, but 9 years doesn't make any sense to me.
And he shows up in this sting, allegedly trying to have sex with a teenage girl.
Yes.
And his English was just fine with me. Now, once the Homeland Security agent involved in this particular investigation started asking questions, suddenly he wanted a Mandarin translator.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was fine. He understood what I was saying, and I understood what he was saying just fine.
Yeah. He's been here 9 years. He should understand what you're saying just fine, especially if he's been getting an education for 9 years in opera. I don't know how he doesn't know how to translate.
Yeah. And to me, what else was he up to here? Now, again, we have a bit of an adversarial relationship with the People's Republic of China when it comes to intelligence gathering. I've been to China. They watch me very closely when I go over stories. I know we watch Chinese nationals very closely in the intelligence community here, but it raises suspicions about what he was really doing here.
And he's on a campus. He's on a campus. I know it's a college campus, it's still a campus. There's a lot of young individuals there,
right?
That can be very vulnerable, and he's on that campus. He's a student for 9 years, and that's scary to know that you have those people that are out there doing whatever they're doing. We actually got a call on this guy the next day for a missing persons report
from the university, from
the
LSU.
University, worried about him. So there's no need to worry. He's fine. He's up in.
He's in the Jasonard
Hotel, getting his meals, 3 square meals, and doing what he does. So he's not missing. He's where he needs to be.
We had a fellow show up on a motorcycle to have sex with a boy after a chat, who tried to tell me that he knew all along this was a sting operation. He knew it was likely me there, and that he wanted to get involved in the effort to
help
expose child predators because he was the victim of a middle-aged man when he was a teenager, sexually a victim.
And that intuition, the gut feeling you get of individuals. We watched him on camera, and he drove up on his motorcycle. Was out there, seemed like an hour.
He didn't park in the parking lot.
No, he parked way off
of this.
But we could see him in one of our cameras at a distance moving around, which I believe he was doing some type of illegal narcotics because his demeanor, when he comes in, obviously he was high or something. And he takes his time coming in. Actually, we had to send our decoy outside.
So he could see
so he could see
the decoy.
The decoy, and he comes in, and something wasn't right with him from the get-go. And your demeanor tells me that you didn't think that something was right with this person.
Well, he was working it in his mind.
Yes.
Okay, if this doesn't work, what am I going to say? Because you kept stopping and pausing. And to me, when somebody does that, it's because they're trying to figure out, how the hell do I get my ass out of this?
Yes. And what avenues am I going to use to get out of this, And, of course, the ultimate, for me, the big fear that we have is he's going to use some type of violence to get out of this. Is he going to run? Is he going to, now that we know he had a gun on him, is he going to, try to pull a gun on somebody or try to take somebody high? You don't know what he's going to do, but he was not right in his mind. You could tell, high on something.
He said his name was Kevin.
Gave us the wrong name.
But it was really Devin.
Devin. It was not Kevin, it was Devin.
Sunk that up all on his own.
Yes, he did.
And when you went through his shoulder pack, you found a loaded handgun.
Handgun. Yep. And with a loaded magazine. I mean, the magazine was fully loaded, and sitting right there beside him the whole time that you're interviewing him. The biggest thing is he brought that weapon with him to meet this juvenile.
A
little boy. What was he going to do with a gun?
Yeah,
why would he even need a gun?
He didn't make any suspicious moves like he was going to try to harm me.
No.
But what always makes me nervous about the gun being present in these investigations is what happens if we're not there? What happens if this guy is alone with a child? What happens if it doesn't go his way?
Right.
Does he force the child to do something they don't want to do? Or if he gets nervous, at the end, does he try to eliminate a witness?
Right.
The victim.
It's really scary because, again, you got to think he didn't come there to meet us. He came there to meet a little boy who he thought was home alone, and no one was there with him. So what was his intentions? You know, why did it take him that long to even walk toward the location we were at? He brought a gun with him, and why would you even bring a gun? So we don't know what we would have been working. Missing kid, murder, unsolved homicide at the moment. We don't know who it was. A missing kid. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong here. And again, as scary as we don't know what his intentions. And then I think, if I remember right, he started talking about his childhood and why he was doing this, because he was a victim.
Correct.
And he was there to try to help you to keep this little boy from becoming a victim.
What do you think the odds are he was telling the truth, Sheriff?
Oh, he was lying through his teeth, man. I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing there. He had intentions of doing harm to that young man, which he thought was a young boy. And luckily for us, there was no young boy. It was an undercover officer.
We saw a fellow last night who showed up with 6 or 7 different kinds of marijuana. Mm-hmm. Said he was just going to smoke with the girl. Well, why does somebody drive all that way to smoke with a teenage girl? I mean, obviously, they're lying when they come in.
Yeah. Oh, look, we'll smoke weed and we're going to have sex and we're going to do all these crazy things. And I'm going to teach you all this because, you're so young. But I'm going to be the one that's going to teach you. But first, I'm going to introduce you to some marijuana and get you high first. And there's a variety of it too. It's like, I mean, again, these individuals are just, they're sick individuals. Something's obviously not right with them to be able to even do this. And again, what gets me is the boldness of how they just drive the distance they drive, park, run up the stairs, knock on the door, or just some of them just walk in.
And this guy was apprentice plumber, a guy with a trade, a guy who had the ability to one day make a very fine living, had a meeting with the company for which he works, 8 o'clock at night, and then hustles right over to see this girl after the meeting.
Mm-hmm. If I remember right on the chat, it was, I got work to do. I got a few things, but, come over, we'll get this stuff done real quick. We'll hang out a little while. And it was no big deal.
And we've got phone calls back and forth, which are recorded and which are evidence in these cases.
Right.
Where he says, well, I can't do this. I'm having second thoughts. It's wrong. You're 15. Then you think, well, somebody's going to do the right thing. But he changes his mind and shows up anyway.
Yes. And again, they absolutely have it on their mind. They're going to show up for whatever the rhyme or reason. And you and I had a conversation about this too, if you remember. All these individuals, it's almost like they know what they can do and what they can't do. can't do as far as this like conversations and texting, and they choose to talk on the phone trying to cover stuff. They know they're committing a crime. They know it. You can tell by you listening to them.
Well, they tried to.
They want the victim in their mind to ask for this or ask, like, they want to be able to blame
do it in a way where they can have plausible deniability.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that's scary in itself to watch them do it because they know what they're doing.
In the 2 investigations in which we've been embedded with you, 20 men, all walks of life, professionals, illegal immigrants, people who have been busted before, people, as we saw in this case, who were registered sex offenders. Does that surprise you? If the 20 in 2 investigations with your team, and again, you had, support from other agencies, but it was really, the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office doing this, the backbone of it. What else is out there?
I mean, they are absolutely from all walks of life. I mean, you had plumbers, we've had people kicked out of the New Orleans Police Academy. You had school systems and
employees,
student that's on it here from a visa from China. I mean, 9 years. I mean, so many different walks of life. They are absolutely everywhere. And, this is why we do what we do in law enforcement, because they are out there and they're opportunists. They're looking for that vulnerable opportunity of, to do what they're going to do to these kids. And so that's why it's so important that we do what we do every day, Chris. And it's why I commend you what you do, exposing these individuals, because we need to educate our community. They're out there.
Well, Sheriff, thanks for taking some time for me. For all of you interested in these investigations, they'll be out on True Blue very soon.
I appreciate my friend, Mr. Chris Hansen, his professionalism, everything about him, and to come out here and spend some time with us to be able to highlight what these men and women at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office is doing to get these predators off of our street. And that will do it for Behind the Scenes with Sheriff Jasonard. I appreciate all of you listening. Please download our app, follow us on social media. And again, thank you to Chris Hansen for being a part of our show. In Livingston Parish, we love our schools, we love our churches, and we absolutely believe in the Second Amendment. Be safe, and God bless.